Hello, welcome to our ChannelX Masterclass on how to unlock new growth opportunities with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I'm delighted and very relieved, in fact, to be joined by two experts today, Ross and Nik, both from MOOT, who know an awful lot about machine learning and artificial intelligence than I do. So welcome, Ross, welcome, Nik. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
So the first question I've got to ask is if you can just give me a very brief summary of who MOOT are and what you do, and also can you kind of define what is machine learning and what is artificial intelligence? The terms are bandied around a lot, but what do they actually mean and what can they do for us? So first of all, tell us just a little bit about MOOT and what you guys do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, the MOOT group, Chris, was founded by a chap called Nik Southworth, and his background is technology startups of various types. Yeah, some successful exits, and he started to build some e-commerce retailers and realized that when you hit a certain point in size, it becomes very difficult to scale them any further. And that led to the journey that created the MOOT group, which is really about helping e-commerce entrepreneurs and SMEs to drive their growth in the e-com space. And what you tend to find is that having the resource, the skill set, the time, all of these valuable assets that are hard to come by, Nik's vision was to enable these entrepreneurs to grow their businesses much quicker with a lot less resource. And that's how we progressed into the field that we have of AI and machine learning, of being able to take out a lot of the people especially required and the specialist skill sets to really understand what's currently going on in your business and what you needed to do in the future. So streamlining the decision-making process and allowing you to drive much quicker growth. That in a nutshell is what MOOT's about.
And speeding up the decision-making process, I'm guessing this is where the sort of the machine learning and artificial intelligence come in. But can we kind of try and define those terms and kind of also sort of artificial intelligence, machine learning, is there crossover where the terms are sort of interchanged sometimes, or are there two distinct different technologies in play here?
Well, I mean, I can have a go at trying to sort of dispel some of the mystery around these terms, because they are thrown around with quite a lot, especially most recently in the case of AI. But machine learning specifically is a technology or an approach to using compute to sort of do test and learn type algorithms at scale that enable you to, for instance, test a portion of your, for example, marketing budget on a new approach to campaign management or to messaging or to a new type of user base in such a way that you can, over time, learn what does and doesn't work and develop better and better models to optimize whatever the outcome is you're looking to optimize in terms, it could be ROAS or profitability. And this technology has been around for many years. In fact, we were using this type of technology in a retailer I worked with in the early 2000s, and this type of technology enabled you to automate a lot of what was otherwise done by trading or marketing teams. And so by improving that capability to be able to manage this type of stuff at scale, micro management of could be thousands of different campaigns with ensuring the sort of maximum profitability is really the domain of machine learning. It's effectively just at scale testing, learning and optimizing algorithms to generate an improved outcome, whatever that might be. And the sort of the differentiation, as I see it, at least between that and AI, is that AI is, well, really AI is a group of technologies. It's not one single solution, but it's a group of technologies that looks to use a much greater set of data points to automate other tasks. And so most recently we're seeing the emergence of predominantly large language models enabling the types of sort of chat interfaces that you're seeing today, the generation of content. So there's lots of retail extensions these days for sort of creating content for product catalogs, for instance, which is a real strength for a retailer to be able to uniquely generate content for their website. Comes with pitfalls and challenges, of course, but beyond the sort of the large language model stuff, we're also seeing lots of application of this type of technology in imagery and video. You see, the type of stuff that you see online in terms of sort of the deep fake type technology, which is quite alarming in lots of ways, but also the generation of imagery that challenges the sort of the idea of product photography, for example. Now, what's interesting is what we're trying to do with some of the technology that we're building is use the same type of approach to AI as you see in some of those applications, but using data in a retail setting to sort of generate insights through that data and the other data available to us more broadly. So in answer to the question, really, machine learning is a very established approach to optimizing mathematical models. AI is an evolution of that, and it's a very vast array of sort of different types of technology, all using huge volumes of data to automate otherwise manual tasks.
So it's an exciting new world, and as you say, everyone's talking about the large language models, with, I guess, ChatGPT being one of the most commonly known. And the images have been on the news every day recently with what's real, what's fake. But getting back to what we're here to talk about, which is commerce, what are retailers getting excited about the new technologies of machine learning and artificial intelligence? And also, what are their concerns? And one concern I've had bandied around loads, which might even affect me, is, will it do me out of a job? Well, one day, will there be a robot sat here, or an image of me that's artificial intelligence sat here interviewing you? But more importantly for retailers, how's it going to affect their marketing teams and their merchandisers? What's the good things? And what are people worried about? And are they real concerns that they should be worried about? Or is it just hype that everyone's going to lose their job and a computer's going to take over?
Well, I suppose there is the potential that you could use this technology just to streamline your operation. So, yeah, in some cases, it depends on the sort of business that you work for. Yeah, if you work for a business that wants to strive to be the best and really drive the maximum level of growth, then they're still going to need people. And our technology and the things that we work on should enable those people to achieve a lot more. But, there is potentially a streamlining situation in the future. Now, we've developed this to allow the people who are in the business to make much quicker decisions and to deliver ultimately a better experience for the customer and the consumer, because that was really where competitive advantage is going to come into play. That our clients and our partners, we want them to be a step ahead of the competition without needing to employ dozens of analysts. And we see the opportunity for our clients really is doing something they don't currently do, because most businesses don't invest as much as they should, particularly at an SME level, in the analytics of what's going on. Partly because they might not know how, and the leadership might not understand enough of what direction and where they should invest their resource. And partly because it's extremely time consuming, and having access to that data. So if you took Google as a principle, if you're looking at your ad platform, as a retailer, a huge portion of your marketing spend is more than likely going to be spent on Google. But getting to the level of insight that you really need to truly influence the decisions that you're making on that platform and that investment, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult, particularly if you don't have the experience in that area and you don't necessarily have a team of analysts to do it for you. So part of the goal of MOOT is allowing you to get access to that data and then to action it in the quickest, most streamlined, most effective and efficient way possible.
I guess it's a bit like looking back to the days when just about every company would have had a pool of manual typists on typewriters typing away, and nowadays we just accept word processors on computers are better, and it's not done everyone out of a job. It's just that it's enabled them to do their job much faster, do more work, be more productive. And it's you mentioned sort of your Google AdWords account. It's just kind of impossible to go through and look at every single line on it and try and optimize it manually. There's got to be some sort of automation in there.
Exactly. it's very difficult to get to that level of detail. If you looked at Olivia's.com as an example, there's 17,000 different products all being promoted through Google Shopping and also social channels and Meta, etc. And as we all know, the traffic that is driven to those products, they may not convert on those products, but they may go on to buy something else. And having the ability to calculate the real ROI on those visitors, now that's borderline impossible. Now we're very analytical in the way that we approach these things, and we've tried to do a lot of this manually. But the technology at MOOT, we can draw all that information and we can cross-reference it to test that it's robust, and to also look at different theories that could take someone manually weeks to do. You can run through dashboards and programming in almost seconds. You can almost have it there ready to go. You just need to know what the question is that you want to answer. And that's really what our vision is all about, is we have the answer to the question before you've thought of the question.
Yeah, and I want to come back to Olivia's in a little while, because that's an interesting case study that deserves digging into a bit more. But talk to me about the current challenges that retailers are facing, and how machine learning and artificial intelligence can start solving those problems and making the act of being a retailer more efficient. And is it purely the kind of the online things like the Google AdWords we've spoken about, or is artificial intelligence going further back down the retail supply chain to look at stock forecasting? Is it managing my sales and promotions? We're coming into Q4. We've got an Amazon sale in October. Then we've got Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Then we've got the run up to Christmas. There's going to be a lot of promotions going on. So retailers probably already know the challenges they face, but how can artificial intelligence and machine learning start addressing some of those challenges and making their lives easier?
Well, I'd say the greatest challenge that I'd see for a retailer is having so much information available, but knowing which bit of that information is actually the pertinent part. And, without having dozens of people who are going to say, oh, this is the key piece of information you need to worry about today. But the information that comes from it can affect full end to end, from the forecasting of, well, actually, we think that the weather in Q2 is probably going to be hotter, cooler. It's going to be rainier, because we talk a lot about this, that when you talk to PPC agencies, a lot of the time they'll say, oh, your sales were affected by the weather. But it's not that simple. If you think about the weather being just one of the many variables, it's actually more important of, was it 25, 30 degrees on that day, which meant that you made no sales or sales were low. It was probably that was the first hot day of the season, which then became a novelty. So people went to the beach that day. Whereas on the 10th hot day of the season, they're less likely to, because they've already been 9 times. And it's thinking, it's learning that A, it's a weekend, B, it's of a certain temperature, and you can forecast all of these things. But as an individual, it's just too complicated. You can't even begin to build the understanding. Whereas if you've got the platform that does it for you, you can foresee to a certain level of accuracy pretty much anything that's going to happen. So you can start to work out, well, what stock levels am I going to need based on the price fluctuations we've seen in the market so far? That how many competitors did I have in this space this time last year? Have I got more or less? Am I likely to have more market share? These are all calculations that are too complicated to do by just one person. But if you've got the learnings there, and ultimately to turn that into the artificial intelligence, it can affect everything from stock levels through to, well, what products should I show on my site? Moving way beyond the proximity product suggestions that you see from most providers today, to taking into account, well, I've got an idea of who you are and how you're likely to behave, and I know that you've been looking at category X. Therefore, I'm not just going to show you more, let's say they're dining tables, because I know from your cookies that's what you've been looking at. I can start to say, well, you looked at dining tables 2 weeks ago, so you might be looking at linen, or you might be looking at cutlery, and there's normally a 2-week delay between you buying the first part and the second part. And that's the sophistication that you can get through ML and AI.
I've got to say, I've been on so many marketplaces in the past where I look at something like a dining room table, and then I go and buy it on their site, And then all they show me for the next 3 months are dining room tables. Like, have you not realised I've already bought one? And show me the linen, show me the crockery, the cutlery sets, the centerpieces. I've already got the darn table. I don't need another one.
Yeah,
And I think that
if it's been more than
that basic level of the past of, oh, you looked at this, let me show you more of this, just doesn't hold up, does it?
Yeah, and that's the basic of people offer. Go on, sorry, Nick.
I was just going to say that's the sort of fundamental flaw, really, of looking at these things in isolation of one another. And there's tons of platforms and pieces of technology out there, and I've used lots of them to good effect. And I don't want to detract from the capability that they offer at all, because in lots of cases they work very well. But when you look at something quite quite so two-dimensionally or one-dimensionally, even in terms of you looked at tables, therefore we'll show you more tables. The fact is, in a kind of a Pareto's law way, that probably works. That probably returns on the investment, and therefore they can demonstrate that that's a great investment in technology. Not taking into account, the people that are completely frustrated by that as a result. Now, what I think as we start to use this technology, because Ross is absolutely right, the biggest challenges, as far as I'm concerned, with the retailers that I work with, are that there's just too much information. There's too much data. We know that there's something happening, could be good, could be bad, but quite often we're very, very, very difficult to attribute that statistically or in a significant way to the data that we've got access to. So quite a lot of time is spent sort of in paralysis looking at all this data and trying to make sense of it. Once we use the technology that we've been talking about to fully correlate those multitude of many, many thousands of data points, to truly understand the correlation at scale, which can't be done by a human being or a team of people. Once we understand that scale, what those correlations are, we can do something about it. We can understand it more deeply, and we can act in a way that's far more intelligent than just showing you more tables, because actually en masse that seems to work, which is really all that's happening there. You're taking the kind of the average of the average, and you're getting an increase in sales, and quite often we don't really understand what the actual reasoning is for under that. So it's using this technology to fully interpret and understand what's actually happening and provide some insight as to what to do, or simply to understand what's happening. And as long as we understand, we can sort of decide whether we want to do something about it or just move on. But I think that is what this technology is enabling now for retailers.
So you just talked about the sort of the thousands of data points. So I want to put you on the spot here and try and drill down a bit. When I first get started with machine learning, artificial intelligence, what data points should I be looking at, and how do I create sort of actionable insights, and then how do I apply that to make a superior shopping experience and actually drive the business forward? So where do I get started?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, and that is part of the challenge, because it's just such a huge landscape. But the types of things that we like as trading teams, the types of things that we look at when, for example, sales are up or sales are down, it's all it's around how are my products indexing. I've got a conversion rate on site of whatever it is, 3%, but how are my products indexing across that? Why have I got poor performers in the mix, and why have I got star performers in the mix, and what is the reasoning for that? Is it around price? Is it around content? Is it around photography and media or positioning? Do I just have some technical issues on site? These are the types of things that as trading teams we look at all day. And what we are sort of talking about here is using the technology to do that at scale across, you might have thousands and thousands of SKUs, and it could be hundreds of reasons why, for example, that product is underperforming. So using this technology, the combination of the technology we've been talking about to identify a correlation in those data points of views through to add to carts, through to purchases, through to view through, whatever those data points are, interpret them, make sense of them, and then go on to actually use that kind of machine learning approach of, well, I'm now going to take my hypothesis, for example, I'm going to enrich the product descriptions of a subset of my catalog using AI and large language models to facilitate that. I'm then going to measure the improvement and change over a period of time, and then I'm going to be able to play back a really statistically significant correlation between product descriptions, for example, and conversions. That's just one single example, but it could be pricing, it could be categories. It could be the fact that you're not selling the product that the customers actually, you're paying for traffic to land on the site, but the products the customers are looking for just aren't there or aren't in stock, for example. So unfortunately, it's a very vague answer, but there's hundreds of reasons and hundreds of data points to go along with it, which really underlines the problem.
Yeah, I think it's very complicated. What I want to do is try and make this a little bit simpler for the people watching. So I'm going to make a unilateral decision that for the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes, we're only going to talk about people that are using the MOOT platform, just to kind of narrow it down. So you're not going to go and worry about which machine learning tool am I using, or where do I get my artificial intelligence? Am I using ChatGPT or another large language model? Let's just talk as if everyone's already using MOOT. And give me some examples of insights that you've kind of created for clients. What's been the business impact for them? How has MOOT actually helped people?
So some examples being understanding where consumers are in the funnel is quite a big part. That if you look at Olivia's, there's a 42-day window, I think, for conversion. So you could look at this.
Before we go on, Ross, just tell us a little bit more about this retailer Olivia's. Sort of what type of business are they? What scale are they? What size are they? Just to put it into context.
Yeah, so Olivia's an 8-figure revenue business, UK only, specialising in premium furniture on a direct and drop ship basis, and they offer hundreds of different brands, 17,000 plus products. A lot of technology in the back end that allows them to do that very efficiently, but it means that the advertising side of things, the promotional and customer acquisition side, can be very expensive and can be very very inefficient if it's not done properly. Which is why MOOT is so interesting for Olivia's, helping them to understand who the consumer is and how they best target, and where the inefficiencies are in their ad spend is a big part of it.
And now I kind of understand the 42-day funnel, because when you're buying furniture, it's a bit different to 42 days to make a decision to buy my cat food. So that kind of makes sense. So what sort of insights have you created for Olivia? What were their challenges, and what insights were you able to generate for them?
A big part of their challenges were around their investment strategy on their paid media. So they would look at their return on investment and say, it's been very weak. They were making a lot of changes in the early days, and it meant that they weren't able to maximize the return, because it's not a case of I spend £1,000 today on media and in the next 2 days that will return a ROAS of 5, 6, 7x. It would be, of that £1,000, you're probably going to see a return on 50 of it to maybe 250 in the next 24 hours. And it's understanding, is it wasted or is it not? Which then comes to looking at click-through rates versus conversion rates, and looking at a product level, but then also starting to think about, what was the profitability of the products that the customer ultimately went on to buy? So not just thinking in a ROAS point of view, but thinking in a profitability point of view. And the ROAS increased by over 40% over a 6-month period, and the profitability was the same again, really by thinking about what's the customer actually buying when they get on site. So every day they have thousands and thousands of impressions across tens of thousands of products, and it's very difficult to be able to analyze that effectively. And that's where our support comes in, to helping them understand where they should be spending more and where they should be spending less.
So I'm guessing we just a couple of weeks ago had the August bank holiday, and I'm guessing if you've been setting up your Google AdWords before the bank holiday, and that you come back, it's going to be a week, 10 days later, and you look at it and think, that hasn't performed very well. But it's hard to remember that some of that spend is going to perform next week or the week after. And I guess that's where artificial intelligence really comes in, and machine learning, because it can take that longer view and compare it to a 2-month period this time last year, or 6 months ago, or over the spring bank holiday, and start understanding a lot better and a lot faster than a human ever could. So what stages would you say a seller needs to get to in order for artificial intelligence and machine learning to be a viable option for their business? I mean, I don't know, but if I'm a startup and I've been going 6 months, is it too soon for me? Or is it kind of a scale in dollar turnover that suggests you're ready for it? Or is it number of SKUs or amount of inventory? How do I know when I'm ready to start considering engaging?
I think there are retailers where this type of where they've got the scale where this type of technology can apply across basically their entire business, right? And so, from buying products to pricing to replenishing to the way that you organize the content on site to the way that you build your checkout, that like this at scale, this technology really enables quite a lot of insight to be driven, and therefore the opportunity to maximize profits is sort of multidimensional. Now, clearly, in a sort of a retailer that might be an unbrand direct consumer retailer with 10 SKUs, for example, clearly the implementation of a AI-driven recommendations engine recommending 9 products is not going to move the needle in any significant way. So the parameters of the retailer drive, I think, where the opportunities are. But ultimately, I think the way that the exciting thing and the thing that I think retailers need to be considering is that the way that this technology is now becoming democratized by MOOT and many others, the barrier to entry to utilize this type of technology to genuinely transform their businesses is becoming lower. And so, if retailers aren't considering this type of technology today, they will soon find, I think, that their competition will have one up on them in whatever particular area you might find, and that is clearly going to be unique to the sector and the marketplace they're in. But I think it will undoubtedly apply to everyone in one way or another.
And where do you see people using it? Is this more for, as we talked about, keeping track and analyzing Google AdWords type campaigns, or is it going to be used for things like repricing? And I'm not just necessarily thinking sort of, we sell on Amazon, we've got a repricer running on Amazon, but intelligently deciding when should I start my Christmas sales, or when should I start my New Year's sales? Should I have a sale around Valentine's Day? And how early, how late to have them, and when to apply different types of promotions, whether it be a buy one get one free, or a percentage off, or a price off, or a multi-buy offer. Where do you see people, and where can retailers most benefit quickly?
I mean, where
can they get the early wins?
I think the early wins are very likely to be the areas that we've discussed at large, really, which is where a lot of the budget is spent. So on which products they're buying, at what volume. So the whole demand forecasting piece is a big area we haven't really talked about. The spend around marketing and the intelligent use of technology to determine the right way to make those investments, I think, is absolutely critical, and probably the sort of the easiest and simplest way to get started. I think a lot of retailers are also now using those large language models and AI technology to generate unique content, which
that's an obvious win.
Absolutely, and equally, if, for example, if our data is telling us that products that have 5 or more images are performing at large better than those with fewer, then the use of AI to generate imagery, which comes with its own challenges, clearly, around sort of, how confident are we using this technology to depict products that are ultimately, going to be shipped to consumers? But using that type of technology is clearly another obvious use case. And I think over time, as this technology evolves, there's likely to be more and more around kind of campaign management for sure, category management equally so. All that being said, and to the question that was asked earlier, I absolutely feel passionately about the fact that this technology is not going to replace the human being in terms of determining when it is right to sort of launch a campaign and the kind of the tone of voice around the campaign, and ultimately we, lots of our retailers, and one that Ross and I worked with together many years ago, are creating curated experiences, and so actually their brand strategy goes ahead of potentially in some cases maximizing return on investment, because it's not all about profitability when some of that kind of top of funnel activity is all about building a brand. So I think there are times when this technology will absolutely make sense, and then there are times when actually the human being is likely to override the decision because it's not aligned with a broader strategy, for example.
And can we talk a little bit about going deeper down the supply chain and how we can use these new technologies maybe to work with our suppliers or potentially even manufacturers? How far down the supply chain can we drive this technology to improve and streamline the business?
Well, there's definitely lots of opportunities. If you can understand what's going to happen in the future, then that obviously means that you can relay that ahead of time to your full supply chain, which will tell you everything from, well, how many people am I going to need in my warehouse to dispatch the products, all the way through to how many products will I need, and what's likely to be the trend. That you should be able to forecast growth curves for up and coming categories. Once they've reached a point where you have enough data points, you should be able to then model that growth, and understanding how the weather and the environmental factors and all of the variables that are out there are going to ultimately impact that demand pattern, which is obviously what absolutely drives the operational side of the business. That if there's no demand, then you don't need any product, and vice versa. And that's really an area that is still relatively in its infancy. There's a lot been done there, but getting more into the external factors of whether that be the weather, and as we were talking about earlier, of a deeper understanding, rather than we know it's going to be warm in August, but maybe not this August. But you generally from history plot that quite simply, but there's layers to it. You can make it more sophisticated in applying consumer behaviors, and what are the school holiday dates this year? When's Easter? Easter's a great one. That Easter's a different time every year and has a huge impact on e-commerce and retail. How do we then factor that in without somebody sat with a spreadsheet calculating the movement and how it's going to impact? And Chinese New Year, that you can build in. Chinese New Year's there. That means that you need to have your orders need to be booked, deposits paid, etc. by day X. Otherwise, it's not going to be here in time. And all of these things, the just-in-time situation, it's driving that efficiency, that businesses are under more pressure than they've ever been before. So what you can do to drive cash flow efficiencies through an understanding of what's going to happen in the future, it has to be beneficial.
And that's fascinating. And I hadn't even thought about the fact that Easter and Chinese New Year move a little bit each year. But something else that retailers are going to be especially interested in, I think you could talk to Olivia's again on this, is how you can use this new technology for to take advantage of bundling insights and increased basket sizes. And I guess it comes a little bit back to what you were saying, Nik, about what products do we actually show you? If you've looked at a table, do we still show you tables or show you something else? But when someone's actually in the shopping basket, what kind of insights can artificial intelligence do, and machine learning probably, to actually show them more relevant products?
Well, and this is one of those problems that has had lots of investment in terms of recommendations engines. There's a number of them out there doing a reasonably good job using this technology, but in my view, somewhat limited, because it is only looking at this one problem, this one thing in isolation. It's not looking at the bigger picture of what the consumer's doing, and where, on a one-to-one basis, almost like what is the right thing to be showing to this consumer on the basis of all of the things, the data that we've collected and their behavior on site and off site. But this is an absolutely, and it's part of the MOOT vision and the MOOT platform to utilize all of this technology, the data that we're collecting, the correlations that we're creating, the insights that we're generating, to then on site be able to create one-to-one personalizations that goes well beyond those blunt kind of rules around you've clicked on a table, therefore here are some more tables, or the kind of upsell rules around we've got you into the basket, you're spending 50 quid, let's try and get another £5 into the basket by showing you this, which granted these things do work and they are part of the story, but trying to utilize the availability of this information and the democratization of this technology to go further than that, and use these to create more rules that are taking more and more data points into consideration, rather than what is today a fairly blunt instrument.
Thanks for that. So we are coming up against time, but I know people are going to want to know a little bit more about MOOT and what the MOOT platform can do for them. So can you kind of try and summarize we've talked about lots of different use cases, what retailers want, what they could possibly do. But if someone wants to know about MOOT, what can MOOT do for a retailer or brand today? What can people expect as they start investigating the platform and perhaps adopting it?
Well, the MOOT platform comprises a number of different sort of areas, if you like, and we've got a whole bunch of areas that we're investing in the future as well. So the vision for the platform goes well beyond what's available today. But broadly today, the platform is consuming and ingesting a vast array of data points, as we described earlier. So the many thousand data points that retailers have available to them today in terms of transactional data, on-site behavioral data, marketing and attribution data from the various channels, performance information around the web application itself, et cetera, et cetera. You know, there's thousands of data points that the platform is able to ingest. It is able to then use our technology to be able to determine where those correlations might be able to be used to generate true insights, and then ultimately provide action to the trading team that are using the platform. So it's very much a tool for trading teams to maximize profitability by providing them with insights that are, you know, otherwise difficult to achieve in this vast array of data. So that's the first part that I would describe. The second and probably the more established piece of technology in the platform is a product called Audience, which is the ad tech platform that effectively enables its retailers, its users. It actually transcends e-commerce, but the customers that use the platform are able to identify cohorts of individuals, understand the size of the cohort, and effectively create a campaign where programmatic and video display ads can be used to target, to advertise their products, whether that's a website or piece of content or whatever that might be. That's really broadly adopted, and that's using that same machine learning technology, and has been for many years, to take out a lot of the complexity of the buying decision of where should I invest my, you know, for example, £10,000 in media to attract this type of consumer. Now, what's exciting is when we then blend those two things together and are able to then not only introduce our product to those consumers in that cohort, but then also use that same cohort to identify and monitor and measure their behavior on site, and therefore bring that data together to further improve the performance and profitability of the retailer. And then the final element, as it exists today at least, is we use all of the data described to then be able to provide those personalized on-site recommendations that you can, you know, see, that you'll see on most sites today. But again, trying to use this data to create a much more personalized experience, rather than that kind of, here's some more tables. So Audience, Intelligence, and Recommend are the three parts of the platform today, and we've got a lot of ideas about what we're going to do beyond those three.
So what I'm really hearing is that MOOT is a platform which can give a hyper-personalised shopping experience at scale. And when I say hyper-personalised, I don't mean just personalised, but personalised for me. If I'm the one on your retail shopping site today, I'll see something different to what you see, Nik, and what you see, Ross, based on things I might have done a month ago or 2 months ago, and the technology has clocked what I've been doing and has figured out what I actually want. But I've got one last, probably very important question, and that is, what kind of size or shape retailer does MOOT work best with? We kind of said that almost everyone should be using artificial intelligence, whether it just be for using ChatGPT to create product descriptions. There's something out there for everyone, but specifically for people that are looking at MOOT, what type of retailer can you best help?
I think one of the key things is that there needs to be some complexity. If you have a very small product range, there's probably not going to be the value to working with MOOT. So I don't think there's a floor or ceiling to the revenue point of view, but really, it has to be something that's a business that has some complexity that's not easy to calculate on your own. That would be, from my perspective, the sort of people who would see the most benefit. Where there's complex things you need to work out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was just going to agree, and the way that we're sort of the way that we're addressing the kind of the go-to-market around the platform is we have an entry-level version of the intelligence product that probably is value add for even the smaller retailers. You know, just the ability to be able to bring all of these data sources together and make sense of it, which you know, applies to basically all retailers. But Ross is absolutely right. The real value gets driven out the platform when the scale of complexity is such that, you know, humans can't possibly understand every single data point and intersection thereof.
So basically, as soon as my business gets to the stage where I kind of feel like I'm losing control and don't actually know what's going on anymore, that's the time to use artificial intelligence and machine learning and come and speak to you guys. And I'm imagining people watching this, all of them thinking about their Google AdWords spend and thinking, yeah, it is out of control. I need help with this. So I know that the one thing that people are going to want to know now that they listen to this is how to get hold of you guys. So if someone wants to find out more about Moot, how do they get hold of you, Ross and Nik?
Well, we can both be found on LinkedIn, or you can find our website at moot.tech.
Fantastic. Well, I think that the future's a bit closer than we thought. We've been promised everything from robot cleaners in our houses on the tomorrow's world of the 1980s, but I think we're now at last getting to a stage where artificial intelligence and machine learning is not something we're just talking about, so that's something we can actually implement. So Ross and Nik, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. And if anyone's got any further questions, find Ross and Nik on LinkedIn, and I'm sure they'll be happy to connect. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks, Chris.